Welcome to Vitality Unlocked. I'm Dan Garner, scientist, performance coach, and Chief Innovation Officer of Vitality Blueprint. This show does one thing: convert cutting-edge science into practical strategies for high-performance health. Each episode, we take one target and run it through a simple filter. Topic, mechanisms, current state of the evidence, and your next game plan. No fluff, no gimmicks. Hey there, and welcome to episode 5 of Vitality Unlocked. I am Dan Garner, and in this episode, we are going to be going over the science of omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3s, in many podcast interviews and videos I've done in the past, I've said to go over the benefits of them. It gets redundant because they touch nearly every system in the body. But in this episode, we're going to get redundant. For everybody who wants to know everything about the science behind omega-3s, I've got your back. If I do my job properly, you will know exactly what's going on with omega-3s in the body, the wide variety of benefits they have, how much you should be having, what type of omega-3s you should be having in your diet, and a whole lot more. You are going to be equipped with more omega-3 knowledge than you ever thought was out there by the end of this episode. I'm very excited to talk about this topic, but just as importantly, I'm excited to wrap it in constraint theory, okay? I've been coaching the absolute tip of the spear in high performance people for 15 years now. I've worked with Marvel superheroes. I've got world champions across many different sports. I've worked with billionaire CEOs. You name it. I've worked with people at the very tip of the spear. And the way in which I operate and the way in which I get results for such a wide variety of disciplines is through constraint theory, okay? Constraint theory, as applied to physiology, is just like what you see on the screen. Physiological processes do not exist in silos. Weak links hinder total performance through multiple mechanisms. Solving the constraint is what equals your highest return on investment, and systems create these constraints. What does all of this mean? Well, the analogy that I like to use is that of a CEO. And a CEO understands that a business will only scale to the degree that it is constrained. Because he wants to grow this business, he is going to be able to look down at his business like a big chart and identify where the constraint in the business is. Is the constraint in sales? Is the constraint in product? Is the constraint in team culture? Is the constraint in marketing? An excellent CEO will be able to look at the business, identify the constraint, and remove it so that the business can scale to the next level. That's exactly what I do with physiology, and that's exactly what I recommend you do with physiology as well. There is so much that you can do, but nothing is more important than solving the constraint. And blood work is actually a real good example for this. I've done thousands of blood tests on people, and it never really operates on this recipe book biomarker approach, in that for this biomarker, take this supplement, for this biomarker, take that supplement, for this biomarker, take this supplement. This like recipe book cookie cutter approach to blood work fails to see the body in systems. And that's exactly what I'm talking about in point 4 here. Systems are what constrain the body, not single biomarkers. Biomarkers are a part of a system, but a biomarker is not a system. For example, C-reactive protein is a marker of inflammation, but it is not representative of all all inflammatory processes in the body. It is a single metric within a whole system. That's why blood work needs to go beyond just looking at biomarkers and instead looking at systems in clusters and identifying where the constraint is. And to bring it back in terms of ROI, if you have 10 strategies for 10 biomarkers, you're kind of missing the point. A bottleneck is really going to only require, say, 1 to 5 things at the most. And what I've done in my career and what really separates good interpretation from poor interpretation is someone who's really poor at interpreting blood work will give 10 recommendations for 10 biomarkers, whereas someone who's excellent at blood work will do 1 recommendation that will solve 10 things. They understand where the constraint is. And a funny thing about finding the root cause issue, when you solve something at the root causal level, many of the other issues disappear. Again, to stay in the business world, it's a lot like an organizational chart. Typically, when you look at an organizational chart, you have the CEO at the top. And then that CEO has two people on the board. And those two people on the board may have four team leaders. And those four team leaders have 8 employees working for them. Well, blood work and physiology are a lot like this. You have one root cause issue. This root cause issue led to 2 issues. These 2 issues led to 4 issues. These 4 issues may have led to 8 symptoms. And the thing continues to grow. When you are able to identify something at the root cause level, which means you're identifying the actual constraint in the body, and you remove it at the root cause level, you remove the actual constraint, all this other stuff really has a way of solving itself, because it is only there because the constraint existed to begin with. It's only there because the root cause issue was there to begin with. When you identify it and you remove it, you are good to go. Constraint theory is how I've operated my entire coaching process, and my entire coaching process revolves around blood work. Applying constraint theory to blood work is the key to getting results for everybody who comes your way, including yourself. And keeping the program simple, keeping it incredibly high ROI. Because I don't know about you, but I'm still a coach, and the number one thing that drives results is adherence. It's that blood work is not going to drive the results unless they can adhere to the program. Well, it's really easy to give someone one recommendation for them to follow instead of 50 to follow. Okay? That identification of constraint to give them one thing for maximum ROI, that is real coaching. That's how you get results. And that's real interpretation and protocol design from good interpretation. But let's go ahead and zoom in, because one of the biggest constraints in the freaking game is omega-3s, okay? And particularly fatty acid imbalances in the body. This, from my career, and I literally have thousands of papers to show you this, not just in the research, but my own actual database of clients, fatty acid imbalance is often a keystone constraint. This is something that many people, even a ton of the people who think they're doing all the right things, and heck, they are doing all the right things. They're just not getting enough of the right things. But they come to me and they come with a fatty acid imbalance. And you can look at this imbalance through these key biomarkers, okay? Total omega-3, total omega-6, and then there's EPA, DHA, and DPA. These are all components of omega-3, and yes, they can all be measured in the blood, which gives you a good idea on like what kind of fish oil you should be after. When you look at fish oils, you typically see this EPA and DHA balance within them. And if you're doing an actual blood analysis, you're not just able to see their total omega-3 content. You're able to see the breakdown of their EPA and DHA. So should you get a DHA concentrated fish oil, or should you get an EPA concentrated fish oil? Or are they pretty good and you just need a 1-to-1 ratio? These things really matter, and you'll see them reflect different areas of the body. EPA is generally more cardiac and anti-inflammatory, whereas DHA is much more cognitive and brain health. Although they are both a part of the omega-3 molecule, they have different effects in the body. So if someone has an offset ratio in, say, inflammatory and cardiac issues, or in cognition and brain health issues, then you're going to see that reflect in the blood work, and you're going to be able to tailor your supplemental approach that much more effectively. Now, me as a coach, in the absence of blood work, I'm a big fan of just a 1-to-1 ratio. A huge fan. I really think everybody should be. When you're looking at your fish oil, this is like a big rule to follow. When you're looking at your fish oil product, you should have 3 grams of combined EPA and DHA per day. That is where you're going to get the most research benefits from all of the things that I'm about to show you. I'm giving you the action step before I actually show you why. 3 grams of combined EPA and DHA per day. Now, very important, that's not 3 grams of fish oil. That 3 grams of fish oil may only get you a gram of total EPA and DHA, or 1.5 maybe if you're lucky. You want 3 grams of combined EPA and DHA per day. For a lot of people, that means doubling their current pill content. That might go from 2 to 4 or from 3 to 6, depending on the concentration. And if you don't have blood work, I recommend a 1-to-1 ratio. Don't lean too heavy EPA or DHA, because you're going to throw your own biomarker status off and you're completely flying blind. You have no idea what you're doing. So get the 1-to-1 ratio, hit that 3-gram target, and you're going to be doing a million good things for yourself that we're about to get into. Also, you can measure arachidonic acid, linoleic acid, the ratios of arachidonic to EPA. So you're looking at basically pro-inflammatory to anti-inflammatory status. Same thing with omega-6 and omega-3, but a little bit more on a global sense. Total omega-3 status and omega-3 ratio is your pro-inflammatory to anti-inflammatory. Important to note that nothing here is bad, okay? If someone tells you omega-6s are bad, then they haven't spent one day in the literature, because they're saying omega-6s actually have beneficial effects on the body. Like all things, though, more is not better. Biology prefers balance, and many, 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 many people undereat omega-3s. So omega-6s aren't bad. Arachidonic acid isn't bad. Omega-3 isn't just pure good, and that's the only thing that's good in the fat world. That's not true, okay? This is why we do biomarker testing. This is why we do ratios, because we want to see where you're at, and we want to make sure that you are balanced on where you're at. Before we move forward, total omega-3 in plasma concentrations in blood is pretty much useless, okay? Don't be sold that these things are beneficial, because they're not. Plasma fatty acids, they're just going to reflect your recent dietary intake for the most part. It's really not going to be useful at all. That's going to hurt a lot of feelings. That's going to get some people upset with me, but I don't really care. What you want is red blood cell status of omega-3s, okay? And omega-6s and anything else for that matter. Red blood cell status actually gives you an insight on what is the current status of the body, what is the current storage of the body, what are the current cells made up of. Your RBC status of these fatty acids, that's what matters. You're getting an intracellular reflection of your actual physiologic state rather than what you just recently ate. So you want your blood test to say RBC omega-3, or you want it to say, preferably, omega-3 index. These are the things that you want to see in your report. If your report just says plasma fatty acids or serum fatty acids, then your diet that week probably determined your blood test and you threw out $200. All right? Don't forget that. Don't forget the dose. Don't forget the markers. All these things are very, very, very useful right out of the gates here. I kind of already went into this, but those are the ones that reflect your omega-3 status, and then your omega-6 status and your ratio load. You're looking at anti-inflammatory, pro-inflammatory, and then a balance in the body, because you don't want too much of either. This is biology loves balances. Marketing does not like balances. It's something in my career. If you've seen my posts, they're not always fancy. Screenshot studies and just break them down. All right. Science is like this slow march toward a good answer. Marketing is this overnight snap your fingers. Let's rock, baby. We're going to do all this. So we're going to do all that. That's exciting, and that's easy to grab hold of. It's easy to make documentaries about. But it's just not the truth. And I mean, that's the whole problem with documentaries to begin with. A lot of people ask me, hey, did you see this new documentary? What do you think? Hey, did you see this? It's taking over Netflix right now. What do you think? Look, they're making an entertaining film that they want to go viral. Like, from the word go, they are not following the laws of science. They're not looking at the totality of data. They're making something entertaining. Guys, if there was a real documentary on real science, you wouldn't watch it. And neither would I, probably. It would be terrible. But at least it would be the truth. Okay? Science is that slow burn to a good answer. And you want to make sure that one of the easiest ways to stay away from that is to stay away from absolutism. If anybody says zero omega-3s or only omega-3s, or zero omega-6 or only omega-6, if anybody says really zero or only anything, that should red flag you right away. Like, why? You better have a damn good collection of human RCTs to demonstrate what you're talking about. And that's a wrap on that. So getting all these balanced and avoiding absolutism is really important to staying true on your guide here on constraint theory. But looking at constraint theory and bringing it back to the system level, let's just talk about omega-3s and if they're offset, what can happen inside the body. Cardiometabolic efficiency is a great place to start, okay? Relationship to cardiometabolic biomarkers. You guys know how this goes. I'm not going to stand here and give you my opinion on everything. You and I are going to walk through the research together, and I'm going to give you the slides. I'm going to hyperlink all the studies so you know exactly what's up, and you can always do your homework whenever you need to. 47 overweight men had an omega-3 index. Again, this is important to look at in the literature too. You want to see RBC measures or omega-3 index measures in the literature when you are creating more confidence in omega-3 status. Measured twice over 16 weeks. Increased omega-3 index was correlated with 43% better insulin sensitivity than the insulin sensitivity was 43% higher in the high omega-3 index group rather than the low omega-3 index group. High omega-3 index had a disposition index that was 70% higher, and fasting insulin concentrations were 25% lower. This is a phenomenal combination of things that are actually happening within overweight individuals. That's what's important to kind of care about here. So insulin sensitivity, for those who aren't familiar, your cells are just more efficient at utilizing insulin. So when the pancreas, every time you consume some form of carbohydrate or protein and certain amino acids for that matter, but let's keep it carbohydrate in the interest of this conversation. You're consuming some form of carb, the pancreas will secrete insulin, and that insulin's job is to find a home for that carbohydrate, whether it's going to store it in the liver or it can be stored in a little bit of the kidneys. The skeletal muscle mass is the largest warehouse for carbohydrate storage in the body. That insulin needs to find a home for it. Now, when someone has chronically elevated blood glucose and chronically elevated insulin, which can happen in people who are chronically obese or chronically inflamed or sedentary, what happens is insulin is very inefficient. You become insulin resistant, and carbohydrates or blood sugar ends up staying high and creating a lot of havoc in the system that you don't want. And your body ends up overcompensating by producing even more insulin because your pancreas secreted the appropriate amount of insulin for the meal to be stored. But then since you're in a state of insulin resistance, the pancreas is like, all right, I thought that I already secrete enough insulin for these blood sugar to go away. I'm going to secrete more. I'm going to secrete more. I'm going to secrete more. And you end up in a resistant state that creates a lot of metabolic chaos, specifically in the cardiometabolic system. When you're insulin sensitive, your body is just that much more primed to store carbohydrates as lean mass, as opposed to it floating around in circulation, creating oxidative stress and cardiometabolic issues, or being converted to fat. Insulin sensitive state is a state that you do want to be in. What the heck is this disposition index that they're talking about? A disposition index is that compensation mechanism that I just talked about. So that actually is a good measure, actually used medically, to measure how efficient you are with your insulin. So this is basically insulin sensitivity versus insulin resistance. If you consumed 30 grams of carbohydrates, and I'm making this up, but this is for the purpose of education here. If you consume 30 grams of carbohydrates, then your body is going to produce 15 units of insulin in order to store those 30 grams of carbohydrates. Let's consider that efficient. Now, if somebody's inefficient, you're consuming the same 30 grams of carbohydrates, but now you're producing 50 units of insulin in order to store those carbohydrates. That is what this disposition index is measuring here. And you want to have a high disposition. So you see here, high omega-3 index men had a disposition index that was 70% higher. That means that they are way more efficient with their insulin and glucose feedback loop than somebody who is insulin resistant. Lastly, fasting insulin concentrations are 25% lower. That means there's less insulin circulating around their body because they're so much more efficient with storing blood sugar, using blood sugar, clearing blood sugar with their insulin and other things. Their body's just way more efficient. This is all correlated to omega-3 status, right? We're talking about insulin, we're talking about carbs, sugar, all these things. This is omega-3 status. Omega-3s is very well demonstrated. These things increase insulin sensitivity. They improve overall glucose dynamics. And the reason why I'm showing you this study is because this happened in overweight individuals. So when we, as a coaching practice, lots of times, I don't know if you guys have heard this before, but it's like maximum insulin sensitivity for men happens when they're less than 15% body fat. Maximum insulin sensitivity for women happens when they're less than 25% body fat. Like there's these kind of like rules that exist in personal training, strength and conditioning, functional medicine, and the rules aren't bad. I mean, those aren't bad. It's not a bad target to be lean. However, if you do look at a granular level, if someone is a little bit more overweight, but they have a far superior omega-3 status than someone who is equal overweight but has a poor omega-3 status. The blood sugar dynamics aren't even the same. They don't even look like the same people. If you looked at their blood work, this is lots of times what they call like a healthy obese, or a healthy overweight. If somebody is able to actually maintain their cholesterol levels and their blood sugar levels despite their body fat percentage, guys, omega-3s are playing a giant role in that. They allow you to be more resilient to cardiovascular issues, even in states of being overweight. Now, of course, you do want to be lean, but I want to point that out. When you're doing blood work, you're actually able to make better calls. If a bodybuilder in the off season is actually gaining some body fat, if an athlete in the off season is gaining some body fat, or if someone's going on vacation or a bender or whatever the heck it is, guys, get their omega-3 status, RBC measured to an excellent point. What's it called when you're gonna forecast alert here, get it over 8%. When you get someone's omega-3 index over 8%, they are in an optimal state. They will be at optimal resilience, and you are truly creating a more resilient cardiovascular system, even if somebody's overweight, let alone if they're lean. Okay, these benefits just compound. So we'll carry on here. Next one here. This is a study in 2011, reviewing observational studies and RCTs. This is what we want to see. Each 1 gram of combined EPA and DHA decreased triglycerides by approximately 8.4 milligrams per deciliter. Okay, for every 1 gram of increased omega-3 status, but specifically EPA and DHA. I'm going to keep hammering that. I'll probably be annoying by the end of the episode, but I want to get that point home. Every gram of EPA and DHA, it reduces triglycerides by 8.4 milligrams. So you look at the previous study, guys, we're talking about insulin sensitivity, glucose control, disposition index, even fasting concentrations, and now looking at triglyceride status. And this is dose response, right? Each 1 gram decreases your triglycerides by 8.4. I mean, optimal status for triglycerides is really between 70 and 100. If you can get in that range, you're in a phenomenal spot. And omega-3s are mandatory. They're mandatory in the cardiometabolic world. There's another great paper. It's actually the same paper. What I'm drawing from here is the exact same thing here. If you want a lesson on omega-3s and their impact on cardiovascular health, on the liver, on the arteries, on the heart, on the immune system, this is a great paper to look at. And that's a graphic taken directly from the paper that gives you an insight on some of the things that you can dig into there. This is another one here too. Dietary interventions aimed at maintaining an optimal omega-3 index may offer several benefits for elite and non-elite athletes, including cardiovascular health, performance optimization, recovery, and injury prevention. So just like that sentence alone, right? All by itself, cardiovascular health, performance optimization, recovery, and injury prevention. You're looking at a real powerhouse here. But the reason why I'm particularly pulling up this paper is because of this graphic that comes with it. This is one of many papers that supports why I want people to have an omega-3 index over 8%. You want an omega-3 index over 8%. But the reason why I brought this up is not just to demonstrate that, but to show outcomes. Sudden cardiac death, coronary heart disease, and death from all causes. So we're not just looking at the disposition index. We're not just looking at triglycerides. We're not looking at singular things and singular markers. No, we're looking at actual outcomes. Sudden cardiac death, coronary heart disease, or death from all causes. Death from all causes, okay? This is omega-3 risk thresholds. If you're less than 4%, you're in a bad spot. You're between 4 and 8, you could improve. And if you're better than 8, that's where you want to be. This is a very important thing to grab hold of here in the omega-3 world. And you don't have cardiovascular health if you don't have your omega-3s in check. And one thing that I do at live presentations that I've done a bunch, I've just been like, okay, hey guys, raise your hand here if you take omega-3s. And everybody's hand raises. And then I'm like, all right, keep your hand up if you could tell me your omega-3 index right now. And everybody's hand goes down. And it's like, what? And I lecture to coaches. I lecture to athletes. I lecture to tactical populations. I lecture to people who are in the game, who are in great shape, who do so many good things, and yet they're flying blind. They're flying blind, and there's no excuse for it. They're flying, like, what do I mean by flying blind? Well, they don't know where their current omega-3 index is at. They don't even know the optimal range of where they should be, and they don't even know if their supplement's working. Like, they're just taking a product and sort of crossing their fingers, I guess. But, like, they don't know where they're at on the scale. They don't know where they should be. And, like, a great way to know if you even have a good supplement is to do blood work. Take the supplement and then do blood work again and see if anything moves. If it doesn't move, your product probably sucks, okay? Or you need to increase the dose or something is going on. But you're totally and completely flying blind if you don't know your omega-3 index, and now you know you need to be at 8% or more. You guys have to do this stuff. This is crazy. It's kind of crazy to me. And I know I'm deep in the weeds in blood work. I know I'm deep in the weeds of high performance, but not knowing if your supplement works, completely flying blind with something you've probably taken for 20 years, that's crazy to me. That's wild. Our technology is too good right now. Our accessibility is too good right now. There's no excuse for that, for your cardiovascular health, as well as many other things. Let's just get into inflammation and oxidative stress next. Another constraint, right? We're talking about omega-3s. If they're low, they're constraining cardiometabolic efficiency. Well, now they're also constraining inflammation and oxidative stress. Here's a big one. This is one that a lot of people miss, okay? Investigated fish oil supplementation when combined with resistance training on damage and inflammation markers after one resistance training session. Daily doses of 780 milligrams of EVA and 606 milligrams of DHA. Kind of a weird dosing scheme, but let's roll with it. It's good data. What are the key findings? Well, the fish oil group decreased lactate dehydrogenase, creatine kinase, and interleukin-6 compared to placebo. What does that mean? They had less inflammation and muscle damage, so they're able to recover more efficiently. They also had a decreased GSSG and CRP. So CRP is the C-reactive protein, which is a global inflammatory signal. But I want to tie these next two things together: decreased GSSG and increased GSH. So this is looking at glutathione status in the body. You can think about GSH like glutathione, and you can think about GSSG like oxidized glutathione. When you're looking at the ratio between the two, you're looking at redox balance in the body. Redox balance is basically how much oxidative stress do you have and what is your capacity to be able to deal with that. Glutathione, and this is a podcast we'll have to do. It's funny, I'm literally about to do this. When you talk about the benefits of glutathione, it gets redundant. I'm going to do the exact same thing that I say with omega-3. Glutathione, talking about the benefits of glutathione, you have to do an episode on it. You really do. It's the body's master antioxidant. It does so many things. But a lot of people don't know about the GSH to GSSG ratio, and you can follow my mouse here. This is looking at redox balance, and you're hitting it on both ends, okay? So now follow my mouse here. Compared to control, the fish oil group was able to increase glutathione status. So fish oil and omega-3 content of the body is increasing glutathione. On top of that, it is decreasing. It also got a lower GSSG. So we have higher glutathione, which is the active antioxidant in the body. We also have a lower GSSG, which is oxidized glutathione. So that when you put that ratio together, there's a monster difference between control and fish oil groups, which means redox balance. Like, you're hitting it on both ends. We have less oxidized glutathione, and we also just have more glutathione. So your recovery capacity is just on a different level, on top of it impacting other things. So this is one that I guess I just see routinely missed. No one's ever making the omega-3 to glutathione connection. That every time I tell someone about that, they're like, what? I thought omega-3 was just like anti-inflammatory. I thought it just played a role in the cellular membranes of cell structures, and that's how it impacted insulin sensitivity. I thought that's just what it would. No, it also impacts glutathione. And I hesitate to just say glutathione because it impacts the ratio. You're improving it on both ends. Guys, this is critical. Measuring redox balance is advanced stuff. And omega-3 status plays a role in that. And when you're improving glutathione status of the body, again, it gets freaking redundant. And I'm telling you, you are getting dozens of benefits from improving that balance. But in the context of this conversation, we'll keep it in performance. Your recovery, say, from this resistance training session in this paper will be better. But in a future episode, let's go over 50 things with glutathione. The mechanisms are clear. Omega-3 is very well researched. This is a good study from 2024, but it goes over the anti-inflammatory pathways of ALA, of EPA, of DHA. The mechanisms are there for your review. We don't need to go through them right now, but it's important to understand that the mechanisms are there. You don't want to be someone that's just on observational studies, creating associations and possible correlations. You actually want to know what's happening at a cellular level, and we're there with omega-3s, which is a great place to be in. But from that same paper, from that same 2024 paper, this is like the real thing I want to show you beyond the mechanisms of understanding. This is cool. Okay, so this is a summary of the possible applications of DHA and EPA in performance. Okay, so we talked about cardiometabolic outcomes, right? But how about the performance stuff? How about the fun stuff? Well, they're ranking omega-3's impact on performance out of 10 based on scientific quality. So a 5 out of 10 for strength training. And that's because omega-3s help with mTOR activation, which is the signaling of protein synthesis and anabolism in the body. An 8 out of 10 for endurance, airway syndrome, flu mitigation, free radical control, and inflammation moderation, right? This is why it's in the inflammation section here, although this table could have been placed anywhere. Mixed team sports, reduced post-workout soreness or delayed onset muscle soreness, 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 for immobilization, preventing of muscle wasting, inflammatory modulation, and a 7 out of 10 for combat sports or people getting concussions through possible support of neuron plasticity and functional preservation. Guys, do you know what it means in science to get a 7 out of 10? Like science, they don't give you any breaks, you know? Like you gotta earn your stripes. Do you know what it means in science to get an 8 out of 10? Shit. Do you know what it means in science to get a 5 out of 10? You gotta have something there. Something's gotta be there. You gotta have outcomes. You gotta have a mechanism. You better be able to stand on a platform and explain without one-liners and charisma and your shirt off why this thing actually works the way that it does. This is a phenomenal example of why anybody who wants to perform better should be on omega-3s. Anybody. And I'm kind of using this new phrase lately called performance for life. Okay? When I say performance, people look at who I work with and they think athletes, high performing CEOs, this kind of thing. And I don't blame them because that's what I put out to the world. That's who I work with. I think it's cool, that kind of thing. But you guys, I spent a whole career also working with non-professional athletes. Like I've worked. How do you think I built my reputation? Right? It was improving performance for life. I don't care if you want to win a UFC world title, or if you just want to be more productive at your job, or if you want to lose weight for the summer, or if you want to lose weight for a vacation, or if you want to be able to get up and off the ground and play with your grandkids without running out of energy or hurting your knees. This is performing for life. Like I don't care who you are. You want to perform for life. And I want you to also think about why athletics and high performing stuff still matters for the everyday person. And the example that I want to use is actually Formula One. Do you know how much has been innovated at the top tier race car level that's now in all of our cars today? When things are innovated at Formula One, innovated at NASCAR, and now they're in every single car because it makes the car run better. It makes the car last longer. It makes the car more efficient. Yeah, they invented it at the top level because that's where innovation happens. You got to do that. But everybody else should also be using those strategies. Do you know how much stuff even in your household was originally invented at NASA? Tons of stuff, you guys, tons. Like innovation, regardless of where it comes from, should bleed into your life so that you can be a better person, live a better life. Like it's you got to grab hold of it. I guess I just get emotional or frustrated sometimes when someone is like, "Oh, that stuff's for athletes. It's not for me." No, wrong, wrong. It is for you. Performance for life. Performance for life. Use it to be a better you. That's what it's there for. Omega-3s in gut health. Another thing, a lot of people think gut health's just like glutamine and probiotics and stuff. No, it's not. Omega-3's arms are wide-reaching, okay? A decrease in Faecalibacterium is often associated with an increase in Bacteroidetes and butyrate-producing bacteria belonging to the Lactospiraceae family has been observed. Coincidentally, a dysbiosis of these taxa is found in patients with inflammatory bowel disease. Omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids can exert a positive action by reversing the microbiota composition in these diseases and increase the production of anti-inflammatory compounds like short-chain fatty acids. Okay? What the heck does all this quote mean and all those complicated bacteria names? By the way, who's ever naming bacteria, you're fired. You're gone. Okay? Sometimes pronouncing these things, it's like, see you later. Bye. Bye. I'll learn about you later. Like, who's ever naming these things is fired from the get. But what does all that stuff mean? Well, even in disease states, omega-3 is reversing bacterial status of the gut. That's like really why I'm pointing this out. Again, because people silo things like omega-3 is just cellular health. Omega-3 is an anti-inflammatory. No, it actually changes the bacteria concentrations of the body from a dysbiotic state to a eubiotic state. This is not my graphic. All these graphics on here are from the literature. And what's happening here is you're swapping good bacteria for bad bacteria. In the absence of probiotics, you're just taking omega-3s. And then you're also improving short-chain fatty acid production, and you're lowering inflammation. So lowering gut inflammation, improving the gut bacteria, and producing short-chain fatty acids. Short-chain fatty acids are really important because, and this is from that same paper, they protect the gut barrier. Okay, your gut barrier is basically three things. There is the bacterial lining, the mucosal lining, and then the intestinal cell lining. Okay, omega-3s on paper help all three of those things. All three. So if you're looking for the three layers of protection within the gut, omega-3s through bacterial, mucosal, and cellular health impact all three. Omega-3 is like low-key, underrated, one of the best gut health supplements you can have. And if you're with somebody and they've got chronic gut issues and you don't know their omega-3 index, what do you think I'm going to say? You're flying blind. You're flying blind. Do something simple. Why are you taking berberine and DGL and marshmallow root and slippery elm and glutamine and all these? You don't even know someone's omega-3 status yet? Get out of here, man. Get out of here. The short chain fatty acids, as improved by omega-3 status, they help with this whole leaky gut thing. Okay, leaky gut is a term used to explain intestinal permeability. Intestinal permeability is where the gut can have microscopic holes in it. Don't worry, it's microscopic. People think leaky gut means their gut looks like Swiss cheese and things are just falling everywhere in the body. That's not the case. There's microscopic holes where microscopic things can sneak through. But when those things sneak through, they create pro-inflammatory responses. They create immune complexes. They can create sensitivities and issues. They can create skin problems. The gut can actually manifest itself into a lot of different things, and that's probably a podcast I should do in the future. Maybe one just on attacking gut health and things you could do globally, but also locally for the gut. But in this context, not enough people talk about omega-3s being a gut health product, but it helps form the gut barrier. It helps all three layers of gut protection on top of reducing localized inflammation in the area. You could see here, inflammation, endotoxicity, immune dysregulation, food sensitivity, dysbiosis. This is figures right from the paper, you guys, a 2025 paper by Yager. So this stuff has got to be, it's got to be done. It's got to be taken care of. And you got to stop flying blind when it comes to gut health. Immune system function. I'll just show you this, right? This is actually from the same paper. Phenomenal paper, by the way. I'll show you it again at the end of the episode. But this Yager 2025 paper is just chef's kiss. But you see this much going on in the immune system because inflammation comes from the immune system. right? You got these cytokines, you have these immune cells, they create pro-inflammatory responses, healing responses, cellular repair. There's so much with exercise and with life that's inflammation mediated. Inflammation is not always bad. Inflammation is kind of like a campfire in a forest, right? A campfire in a forest. It's a really good thing. It'll keep you warm at night. You can cook marshmallows on it. You can use it for light. Campfire in the forest is great, but it becomes really bad when it becomes a forest fire. That's when it becomes really bad. So you actually do want some inflammation in the body. It's a part of the natural adaptive process in becoming a better and more resilient version of yourself. But it gets bad when it becomes chronic inflammation. So this is where you guys feel free to ding through all of these, also all of these different outcomes and TNF alpha and the different interleukins, C-reactive protein, kinase. I mean, you name it, they're all here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I'll risk to say it's pretty obvious. Anything that has such a massive pro-anti-inflammatory response, if you're doing things right, is going to have major immune modulating effects. So I'll say from a coaching perspective though, and again, sometimes I get excited about things and I speak too critically, but I do want to just make points. Everybody runs to say berberine and curcumin, and ginger and these things for their anti-inflammatory effects. And again, I'm holding myself back. Those are good things. But if you don't know your omega-3 index, what are you doing? Okay? I love you, but what are you doing? All right? If you're fatty ass, like if somebody's pro-inflamed and they're just constantly like, man, my joints hurt. I get puffiness in the face. I'm slow to heal. I have a high amount of muscle soreness. I'm inflamed. I'm chronically inflamed. And you're just, you have them on curcumin year round. Like if someone just needs curcumin year round or boswellia year round or berberine year round, ginger year round, you're covering a symptom. You've not solved it. Okay. No, you don't need that year round. That's not the point. Someone's on Advil year round, guys, it's just, those are tools to be used at a certain time, but not chronically. There's no real point. They're only chronically used if you chronically don't know what you're doing. But if you look at someone's omega-6 to omega-3 ratio and you're able to identify, oh man, this person, me chasing this down with turmeric made no sense because the problem all along was omega-3 and that's why the problem never went away. And I've been covering up with Band-Aids the whole time. Okay? So just get your omega-3 fatty acids checked. Immunity is just going to improve dramatically. And that's because you're actually attacking inflammation where it's actually coming from, which is usually immune system and the gut. And omega-3 is checking both those boxes. On performance outcomes. So guys, I mean, on functional systems of the body, what did we go through? Cardiometabolic efficiency. We went through immune system function. We went through inflammation and oxidative stress, glucose control dynamics. Like on functional areas of the body, omega-3 is already checking a million boxes from many perspectives. But what about actual performance outcomes beyond just health and functional outcomes? Well, in endurance performance, remember we got a good old fashioned 8 out of 10 on endurance, but 26 male long distance runners supplemented for 12 weeks, supplementation of 2,234 milligrams of EPA and 916 milligrams of DHA, hitting the 3-gram target. We like this. Daily or MCT oil. Key findings. Omega-3 index was significantly increased in the omega group. Great. Good stuff. They were actually able to improve it and measure it before and after like you should be doing. Positive correlation between running economy and omega-3 status. So that actually the runners are becoming more efficient in their running. And the omega group increased their VO2 peak. So we're getting better at running and we're increasing our VO2 peak to prove it. Okay. Why is someone getting better at the running economy? Well, they're less inflamed. The omega-3s also help lubricate the joints. You're reducing pain sensitivity. You're more efficient with your glucose and energy reserves, which is all about endurance, right? In the endurance world, you can actually train your gut to be able to uptake more carbs and be more efficient with carbs, so you can consume more carbs per hour, provided they are of different sources and using different transporters like GLU4 translocation, the sodium glucose transporter 5. You're using different things in order to make it happen. You can train the gut actually, but omega-3 is, they're allowing the biochemistry to have a good foundation for all that to take place. So unsurprising here that omega-3s are smoking MCT in the world of endurance. How about with muscle mass and strength? Well, men and women participants for resistance training men and women participants resistance training for 10 weeks, supplemented with 4.5 grams of fish oil, but is a breakdown of 2.2 basically and 1.5 between EPA and DHA. We're hitting 3 grams or more than that. We really like this. Key findings: fish oil increased absolute bench press performance by 5 kilograms. So that's over 10 pounds for my Canadian and Americans here. Fish oil also boosted relative bench and squat performance versus placebo. So you're getting better relative bench and squat, and then just an absolute amount of bench taking place. Just look at these correlation graphs. Boom. Like omegas are coming in here and they're really helping for muscle mass and strength. And I'm just pulling out singular papers here, guys. There's full reviews on this stuff. There's lots of omega-3s on endurance. There's plenty on muscle mass as well. But I'm just pointing that out for the muscle and strength example. Cognitive performance. Check this one out. 59 studies using a meta-analysis. If you're taking in omega-3s just at 2 grams per day, which is not even my recommendation, I recommend more than that, a significant improvement in attention, perceptual speed, language, primary memory, visual spatial function, and global cognitive utilities. Okay? Dose response patterns and episodic memory and global cognitive ability. As this is making you smarter. Like, this is a better brain. And this is something that I talk about a lot too with omega-3s, because people seem to make the connection with protein, but they don't really make the connection with omega-3, in that everybody knows muscle's made of protein. So after they stress their muscle in the gym, what do they want to consume after training? Protein. Because it's a supply and demand chain, right? Muscle's made of protein, so I must consume protein in order to repair the protein in my body. But nobody thinks about that with the brain, okay? 30% of your brain is omega-3s. 30% of your brain is omega-3s. And actually 60% of your brain is healthy fats. So 60% of your brain is healthy fats and 30% of your brain is omega-3s. So I don't know why people aren't making the same connection. It's the same supply and demand chain. Your brain is made of healthy fats and it's made of omega-3s. So you got to consume them in order to have a healthy brain. That's why we get attention, perceptual speed, language, primary memory, visual spatial function, global cognitive abilities, episodic memory, global cognitive, like, guys, this is huge. And there's also a lot of research, and we'll probably go into this a bit in the future, but also in the world of dementia, in the world of cognitive decline, omega-3s, and specifically omega-3s with B vitamins, those in the world of cognition are huge, being able to hold on to it better as you age. And so are some of the most primary cognitive markers, by the way. Looking at omega-3 index and homocysteine, for example, as you age, are massive. Massive, because homocysteine really a good reflection of methylation, but also B vitamin status in the body. The omega-3 index, of course, looking at omega-3s, a story for another day. But I'm talking about cognitive performance here. But in the world of omega-3s, there's also a ton of cognitive preservation, we'll call it, as we age. How about mood? 15 trials involving 916 participants examining the effects of omega-3 on depression. Just look at this here. Look how this standardized mean difference worked itself out when you're looking at omega-3 on depression. Okay, huge effects on mood. Huge effects on mood. And it's kind of unsurprising a bit. Like, yes, that, it's like being like, what? Protein is good for muscle? What? It's like, oh yeah, omega-3s are going to have a big effect on the way in which our neurons communicate and how well and efficiently they are able to execute their job on a daily basis. Like, it's kind of like, of course, but the industry doesn't really talk about it much that way, which is kind of crazy. Now, how about sleep here? Relative to normal sleep, adults with very short sleep had lower levels of EPA and DHA and some of omega-3 fatty acids. Differences remain significant. This is looking at sleep status. So one thing, and really why I'm pointing this out, People don't know DHA's role in melatonin production. DHA actually plays an important role in the regulation of melatonin. So you see actually improvements in global sleep quality and other things when in people who have better omega-3 status in their body compared to those who don't. Not just in melatonin regulation directly, but in the management of inflammation. Inflammation by itself is something that hurts sleep quality. So when you're better able to manage inflammation on top of improved melatonin production, omega-3s just end up being in a great spot. So we looked at all of the different functional ways in which omega-3s can improve our health and overall well-being. But now we also just looked at endurance. We looked at muscle strength. We looked at muscle size. We looked at cognitive performance. We looked at mood. We're looking at sleep. Like it's not just what's going on internally, you guys. It's how you experience the world externally. And ultimately, as a coach, that's what people come to me for. Nobody comes to me ever to get blood work, ever. They come to me to have more energy. They come to me to reduce stress. They come to me to sleep better. They come to me to get rid of this mystery bloating that's going on. They come to me for cognitive performance. They come to me for whatever reason they come to me. They don't come to me for blood work, which is a weird thing to say. But the blood work is the most efficient way to get them to where they want to be. We're able to make an objective decision based on a ton of literature and generate the highest ROI option that's going to get them to where they need to be. The best results in the fastest possible way. That's what I'm paid to do, and that's why I made blood work a career of mine. So when we zoom back out, this goes right back to constraint theory, okay? Physiological processes do not exist in silos. Weak links hinder total performance, and solving this problem is the highest ROI. How many things did we just go through? I'll give you an insight, a little bit, on how many things we just went through with the final paper. All right, what are we looking at here? Well, I told you that I was going to bring this paper back up, and it's because it is a beautiful representation to finish this episode off on constraint theory. This is Yager in 2025, and specifically, this is an ISSN position stand paper on omega-3s. This is a graphic taken directly from that paper. I want you to look at this right now and just slowly walk with me. If we can increase their omega-3 status, whether plant-based or not, we can improve the health of men and women by increasing aerobic exercise performance, increasing anaerobic exercise performance, increasing cognitive health, improving immune system health, increasing what's happening with TBIs, improving gut health, and increasing sleep. That's constraint theory happening in real time. And that is not even my graphic. That is from a position stand paper from the ISSN, okay? They are designed to be critical, as good scientists should be, when reviewing the literature and making position stand statements. Position stand statement is exactly that. You are standing behind what you're writing here. And omega-3s, this is where they come out. This is where they come out on top. So when I look at this, I think about this as blood work. Blood work identified omega-3 index less than 8%. Okay, let's put these in and let's see this go to work. You guys, that's constraint theory. And this is really how you want to operate it. It's a cycle, and it's very simple. It's not complicated. Detect constraint with blood work and symptoms, and then move forward to prioritize a high leverage protocol, targeted EPA and DHA, and food strategy. And then you're going to retest and verify. 12-week retest and performance assessment. Ideally, you're going to do this thing every 3 months. Twice per year is okay for a lot of people, but if you're really, really into this game, testing every 3 months is ideal. I especially recommend testing every 3 months if your omega-3 came back low, because you don't want to wait around and hope things are going the way that you want. If a nutrient is low, it's more of a reason to retest sooner than if something else more long-term that can wait happens. You want to make sure that your nutrient is on track. But do blood work, assess omega-3 index, increase omega-3 status, retest, rinse and repeat. A lot of people might see some things that I do, some crazy results that I get with clients, and think that it's like some wow, that guy, how did he do that? How did he do that? It's this. Sometimes it can look like, man, he got 12 results for that client at the same time. How did he do that? This, this. Lots of times it's not that complicated. Somebody comes to me with a clear constraint. I solve that constraint. Everything gets better at the same time. That client gives me a glowing testimonial, but really, I'm just in constraint theory. I'm just doing proper blood analysis and making the right move after that. Okay? You don't need more hacks in your protocols. You need fewer bottlenecks. Identify the bottlenecks, use constraint theory, respect omega-3s, and you're going to be on a totally different level.